Hey guys, I am back with some crazy green yarn and we're gonna learn how to knit on double pointed needles. Now, I have made some things with double pointed needles before, but first what I'm gonna do is show you how I've been storing my needles. I used to keep them all in their packages. These are my crochet hooks. I do have some metal ones left. I've been trying, oh there's one, oh it's just a little hook. I've been trying to switch over to everything bamboo. I got a really good deal on these when we lived in Bermuda. There was a store that was closing out, so I have some crazy size crochet hooks. This is a size S. I think I actually have, yeah, there's an even bigger one. Check this out. It wouldn't fit in this bag, so I put it in here. Waha! This is a U and a T. Like, what am I ever going to make with these? I could make a giant blanket. It'd be really cool. But anyway, yeah, I just thought I would share my crochet hooks. But yeah, I fit them. I got this set of mesh bags at IKEA, and they're really cool. So I just thought I would share with you how I keep my needles, because before, when I was organizing my craft room, I used to keep them all in their bags so that everything was labeled, but the thing is, on the hook itself, it has the measurement on there of what size it is. In here, I have some of my bigger knitting needles too. These ones are really cool, and I love the 9-inch needles. I just find them a really good size. These are the knitting needles that I tend to use, the double pointed ones, and I'll show you what I make with these. Your double pointed needles will come in a package like this, and you get 4 or 5 needles. I'm actually going to use these ones today because they're a little bit bigger, but I use these teeny tiny, what size are these? Oh, my eyes are getting worse. Yeah, they're a 1. Tiny, 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 and I'll show you what I make with these. I make these little things. Oh my gosh, they're so fun. The moshi moshi. So this woman created these little characters and they're absolutely adorable. There's a little Christmas tree. There's a volcano. I love these things. There's the mermaid. Oh, that's when I was designing a little banner for my Red Cardinal Crafts. This is the next one. So this is Mochi Mochi, the teeny tiny Mochi Mochi, and then this one's the Adventures in Mochi Mochi Land. And it's a whole little adventure with these characters. Look at all the sea creatures. Oh my gosh, they're so fun. I think she has an entire circus. Hang on. I'm making that up. Oh yeah, look. Isn't that cute? Ooh, bunnies and pandas and elephants and stuff. Really cute. It's Anna. There's her last name. I'm not even going to attempt. Harachkovic. Ooh, did I do good? I don't know. And then this one, this is huge and huggable Moshi Moshi. These are gigantic. I found this at Value Village and I was so excited. Look, there's like great big ducks, a giant octopus driving the car. Toothpaste and toothbrush, giant pencil. Yeah, really, really fun. A piñata. So really cute. Little pillow, a bag. Anyway, so these are Moshi Moshi. So the tiny ones, I use these teeny tiny needles. If you saw my craft video back in Bermuda, was it a craft video or just a regular video? It might have been a regular video, and I was sitting outside on my lawn chair and my chicken Peach attacked me. There's a little chicken. Let me zoom in so you can see these. Isn't that cute? And then I took that pattern and I made a cardinal. I created this one myself. These are all linked together because this was a little kind of mobile thing I used to have hanging in my craft room, and it ends with a little ghost. Isn't that cute? I did a separate one here. And with the ghost, I just stuff it with a tiny little bit of fluff, with a little bit of stuffing. Isn't that sweet? This is a little cupcake I had made, and I wasn't happy with it. I was going to give it to a friend of mine that I worked with, and she made cakes. There's his little face there, his little eyes. But I just wasn't happy with it. I wasn't happy with the colors. I thought there was another one I made. Maybe I did give her one. I think I might have made a little chocolate one. Here's the mermaid. I changed the color so it would look like Ariel. And there's my chicken. This is the elephant. And what else do we have? We have an armadillo. There's the armadillo with his little tail. We got a fish. There's my cardinal. Dinosaur. And then here's the monkey. And then the ghost. So it's, oh, and a pear. I made a little pear. Whoops. There's his face. Aren't they sweet? So now there's such thing as circular needles, and it kind of does the same thing as pointed needles. These are all my bamboo circular needles, but circular needles can come in different lengths. So I have this one that's really long, and your stitches just hang on this wire. Sorry. Your stitches hang on this wire. And then you get these little ones. Now this one is a size 7 needle. No, sorry, 4.5. Well, 7, you know, US versus, yeah. This is a 4.5 millimeter needle, and I think the full length of it from tip to tip is like 16 inches. But the thing is, to get your stitches on something like this, it's too big to be able to make something this tiny. So that's why you have to use double pointed needles for things sometimes, because then you can make smaller items. So your needles end up like this, and you're knitting on the 3 needles. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but not with these teeny tiny ones, because these are really tricky to use, and these little suckers take me a while to do. Once I get going, I'm fine, but to get started, it's really tricky. These are still in their little baggie from when we moved here. I kept them in this so they wouldn't get all twisted and messed up. So I just haven't hung those up yet, but they need to be hung up because they're adorable. And this is the yarn that I use for those. It's, I never know if it's Peyton's or Patton's. And it's 100% cotton, and it's mercerized cotton, and it's teeny tiny. What size are these? It's 100 grams. I think it's like finger weight or something they call it. It's really small. Like if you compare it to this yarn that we've, oh, where'd it go? If you compare it to this yarn we've been using, it's very, very tiny. All right, so now let's try and do knitting on pointed needles. All right, and I hate when you first get a ball of yarn because it's snaggy. So the size that I'm using are 4 millimeter needles. Okay, and these are aluminum needles, which I used to like. I used to like the sound of them, but now I like working on my bamboo needles. All right, so we have our 4 double-pointed needles, and we have very bright Kermit the Frog green yarn. This yarn is actually spring green if you want to rush out and buy a bottle. Well, actually, no, stay in the house. You're not allowed out. Order it online, or just grab yarn you have around your house. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have to divide our stitches onto 3 needles. So it would be nice to work with a number of stitches that are divisible by 3. So let's do 15 stitches. If your pattern calls for, I don't know, 16 stitches, just divide them up. You're going to have a needle that's going to have an extra stitch on it, but that's okay, because what's going to happen is you're going to have patterns someday that's just going to call for a certain number of stitches, and they're not going to be, you know, divisible by 3. Okay, let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Okay, so we have 15 stitches cast on to our needle. Now I'm trying to stay zoomed out a little bit just so you can see what all the needles are going to do. Okay, bring in one of your other needles And we are going to move the needles, or sorry, move stitches onto that needle. So we're just going to go in as if we're doing a purl, and we're going to lift the stitches off. So take 5 stitches off of your first needle and put them onto this other needle. Okay, now slide those to the center so they don't go flying off. These needles are aluminum and they're so slippery. I prefer bamboo. Okay, so now we're going to go in, do the same thing, take 5 stitches off of that first main needle. All right, yay, that's exciting. Okay, so now we have 3 needles with 5 stitches on them. Okay, try to keep them lined up properly with the tails and everything. Okay, I'm gonna flip them over. I have my tail coming off of this first needle on the left. I have 5 stitches on this middle needle, and I have 5 stitches on this far right needle. Okay, so we've got needle 1, 2, and 3. Make sure that you're not twisted up, okay? Make sure that all your bumps, hang on, make sure all your tail is over here. Make sure your bumps are going along there, and then the line comes along here. There are your bumps, and then you're going over to this needle, and your bumps are over here, okay? What we're gonna do is, why not complicate things more by bringing in a 4th needle. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, this is probably the easiest way. Just lift up your left needle for now. Slide your stitches to the end, but not completely to the end, and try to hang on to that tail just to keep it out of the way. We're gonna go into our stitch just like we're gonna knit. You're gonna grab the yarn that's on the 3rd needle, and that's coming from your ball of yarn. This is gonna get really weird and floppy, and it's gonna be so annoying. I'm just giving you a heads up right now, but it's so worth it when you can get this figured out, and then you can make fun little things like mini cupcakes once you get this figured out. We're gonna take our 4th needle. We're gonna go into the needle that's over here on the far left. Keep that tail out of the way as best you can. I've been just kind of holding it between my fingers just to keep it out of the way. Now, the needles that are laying on the table are gonna jump up when you start moving your hands, and they're gonna get all flippy and floppy, and it's annoying, but just try your best. We're gonna push our yarn a little bit to the end of this needle. The other needles, try to keep it towards the middle so they don't go flying, and keep your tail out of the way. Go into your first stitch. Now, we are going to knit with this yarn that's hanging over here. That's coming off our ball of yarn. I am not making this look easy, because it's not. Okay, so now just knit with these 2. Hold your tail tight because it's going to come off and you're going to lose that stitch. Knit with these 2 needles. Ignore what the other ones are doing right now. Pretend you're on a call with work and your children are bouncing around in the background. Just ignore them for a minute, they'll be fine. Okay. And then knit that last stitch. Okay. Now, oh, the tail. Oh, it's like vacuuming with a cord. If you could just get rid of that tail, it would be so much easier. Okay, now we're moving on to the next needle. You can see it's starting to form a little bit of a triangle with your needles. Go into the next one that's right across from where you finished. Okay, we're going to go into here and we're going to knit. And just pretend you're knitting with 2 needles. Ignore the other 2 needles for now. And you'll see that this needle that we started with now has yarn on it, and now this one is free. So you're just transferring the yarn onto the needle that you're bringing in. So this needle is now going to have all these stitches on it. So we're going to move to the third needle and just knit. On these two needles, just forget that the other two are bouncing around. Just ignore what's happening with those. And you'll see as you're going, it's gonna start to behave. It's gonna start to not be so floppy and weird. Slide your stitches down towards the end and just keep going. Now we've done one row so far. We went around to each of the three needles and just keep going. And yes, you will get stabbed a little bit with the needles. Just be happy we're just doing knit and not trying to knit and purl with all of this. Okay, so when you finish, scooch it to the middle of your needle. The one that you're about to knit, slide it to the end, just so you can access your stitches a little bit easier. And just try to ignore the needles that are flopping around. And this is how I did socks. I've done socks like this. And I've actually done it with 5 needles actually. I think I'm working with 4 needles instead of the 3. And I have that actually, I can show you. One moment. So these are socks that I've been working on. And I have 4 needles. And then I've been knitting with the 5th needle. So, and it's the same thing. You're just knitting, you're just working your way around. And it just goes like this. I'm actually on the outside. Like right now what we're doing, we're kind of on the inside. So I'm just gonna go like that. And then there's your sock. I'm just gonna undo these because I have no idea what my pattern is actually calling for. I haven't worked on these in a while, so I'm just going to undo these. These are Croy socks. Very, very cool. There's Knit and Purl that I showed you in the last knitting video that I did. But these are Croy socks, and it's really cool. You don't follow a pattern. Just as you knit, the pattern forms. It's the coolest thing. You need 2 balls. Obviously, you need 1 ball per foot. That's the only frustrating thing I find about socks is that you have to make 2, unless you have only 1 foot, and then you're okay. But yeah, you finally get one done and you're so excited, and then it's like, oh, I have to start all over again. So yeah, so that's working with 4 needles, and that's on my bamboo needles, which I prefer than these ones. These are just so slippery. And you can get plastic needles too, but yeah, I still prefer the bamboo. They're less slippery. So right now, because this is so tiny, what we're knitting right now, it just seems to be all jumbled up. But you see as you go, like I showed you with the socks, it eventually starts to come down, and then it makes sense. Like you're not so much knitting on top as you're knitting like this now. Oh, I couldn't figure out where my needle went. And then you're kind of just knitting around like I was with the socks, and you'll see that here in a few minutes once we get going. And the needles start to behave a little bit, if you will. You'll see as I keep going here. It just takes the first couple rounds just to get through the craziness of it, and then you're good. And then you can make little hats for dolls and stuff. I don't know. Little baby sweaters. But yeah, that's why those little moshi moshis, maybe just wait on those until you get some more practice, because with the teeny tiny needles and the teeny tiny yarn, it can be tricky. And your tail will become less of a problem as you go because it's going to be further down and out of the way. But it's intimidating because there's a lot of needles, but really when you're actually knitting, you're only knitting on 2 needles. So it's not as scary as you might think. Because really you can only knit on 2 at a time. Or knit with two at a time. Whoops. But then it opens up all these different possibilities with your knitting. You can do socks, you can do mittens. I tried to do a mitten one time and it was really bad. It was my first attempt and it was fine if I held my hand like this, but as soon as I put my arm down, my mitten fell off. It was massive. It was crazy. And I love doing socks. I find the heel, turning the heel is a really tricky part of it, but yeah, once you get it, then you're good. But like I say, you forget again by the time you get around to the second sock and the second heel. So I'll just do a few more rows just so you can kind of see this a little bit better. And this isn't so much a lesson on knitting, it's more about how you do the 3 needles. So it is a little tricky, but once you get it, see what I'm doing? It's easy. And just make sure you're trying to keep everything to the center of your needles, except the needle that you're working on. You kind of need those stitches towards the end. It's a little bit easier. I'll just do a couple more. So basically I'm making a tube and I can come back and show you what it's like to knit with circular needles if you'd like yet another demonstration. And I've actually been making a baby blanket. I am still making this blanket. Oh my gosh, I don't know whose baby's gonna get it this time. It was supposed to go to my my niece who had a baby last year. Never did get it done because then we got into the move and craziness and everything, so I never got it to her, but I've been actually knitting that on circular needles, and it's just a blanket that's going back and forth, but because it's so long and my needles are only so long, if you work on circular needles it's easier and you can make a large project. But I will show that in my next video where I show how to do knitting on circular needles. Alright, I'm just going to finish with this row here. Casting off is the same thing, you're just knitting, you knit the 2 and then you loop the other one over. But there you go, so that's knitting on double pointed needles. And on the inside you're going to see all the bumps because those are all that's like the purl side of everything. But yeah, so it's been doing our knit and purl because we've just been going around and around and around and not just going back and forth like you would. So that's why it looks like real knitting, I call it. And it's not looking like this because that's all your purls, because you just have to keep going around and around with knitting. So there you go. I hope that was an okay lesson. It's a little twisty, it's a little confusing, a little tricky. But anyway, I hope that was a good lesson for you guys. Again, stay safe, stay inside, wash your hands, and I hope you guys are good. And I'll be back with some more videos soon. All right, take care, guys. See ya.